Hello. Make sure I've got everything I need. Give everyone a few moments just to join. We're on session 2 of Ready to Be. And excuse me, I'm just going to turn off this fan because it's really noisy. There we go. So, as you join, just pop in the comments your name. Well, obviously your name will pop up, but just to say hello and you can hear me and it's all coming through okay. And also, if you've watched back or you tuned in live yesterday, if there was anything that really struck you, gave you an aha moment, or something that you've then put into practice today, so let me know. So as we're going to give everyone a few more to arrive, we are exploring today confidence and self-worth, which will then build upon a little bit more. But I want to give you some practical stuff today. We did a lot about talking and mindset yesterday. And the reason why, when we move into this next understanding of, self-worth, self-confidence, and how, all of this is intertwined with the way that we're thinking, the way that we're talking to ourselves, the way we believe the world works, our beliefs that we have about ourselves. Of course, these are all intertwined, but if we just talk about mindset on its own, it's not enough to understand that stuff. That won't in itself create change. Obviously, it creates awareness, but actually in terms of change, like embodied change. And what do I mean by embodied? So embodiment of a new program, a new behavior, isn't just something that we kind of think that we want. It's actually something that we put into practice, that we feel, that we fully presently experience in our bodies. And I put a post up a few weeks ago that puts embodiment really hits the nail on the head. Our nervous system is the recorder of our programs. So it's the recorder of a lifetime of repetition. And that's recorded in our nervous system. And our nervous system has programs of how we respond to certain things that trigger us. This will come alive in our nervous system. These are programs that have settled there. And how do we create new programs? Well, our cells are the creator of our programs. So we can do all the thinking about stuff we want. It's actually when we make the conscious decision and then we actually bring it down into the body, so that through physical action, we're connecting the mind and the body together and the heart together, that we can start to create new programs through the actual action we take. And this is very potent as well, because we can't just alone work with the mind. We can, but we might end up going around in circles and circles and circles. So it is about bringing it into the body, experiencing things through the body, putting ourselves in situations and practices so that we begin to embody, experience presently the qualities that we want to feel and the qualities that we want to live with. So that's what we're going to explore a little bit today. And I'm going to share some embodiment practices with you that you can really do anywhere. You don't need a mat, you don't need fancy yoga leggings, but this embodied yoga practice enables you to ask yourself some personal inquiry. What do we want to say yes to? What do we want to say no to? So we'll look at that a little bit later. To start with this evening, I wanted to expand upon the importance of managing stress in this whole puzzle that we're exploring with. on the path of greater confidence, greater self-worth, connecting to our intuition, connecting to what makes us us, what makes our heart sing, all of this stuff. Managing stress is a key factor. Like we discussed yesterday, in mindset, we're looking to create new behaviors. In life, we're looking to create new behaviors, programs, new neural pathways. But when we are stressed, chronically stressed, living a little bit tired and wired, look at the last few months that we've been living through. I'm sure many of you can relate to that sensation, that state of being just a little bit switched on, a little bit in hyper arousal at all times, a little bit ready for the next thing to happen. When we are in this chronic state of stress, our brain's ability to mold itself, its capacity for neuroplasticity is inhibited. And our ability to step back and focus, see consequence in situations, have the clarity that we need without emotion flooding our lens. We need this stuff to create change. We need this stuff. We need that access to our prefrontal cortex so that we can pull back and be able to ask ourselves these big and beautiful questions from a centered place, not from a fear place. Because when we are asking ourselves these questions, when we're under stress, when we are in fear, particularly our system is living in fear, it's sensing danger, then this will also be activating the emotional part of our brain. So we'll start seeing things from a very ego-flooded lens. So we react instead of respond. We don't see things clearly. And look, any situation that we're in, we're always going to have some sort of bias, however calm and collected and centered we are. We're always going to be we're never going to see the truth, whatever the truth of the situation is. But in terms of knowing how to move forward, in terms of making conscious decisions, compassionate decisions on how we move forward, we have to start managing our stress and anxiety levels. Now, I run 6-week programs on this, so I can't give you everything of how we're going to do that this evening, in these next few days. But what I can do is give you a few simple tools to intercept stress throughout the day. Now, yesterday I was talking about simply throughout the day, checking in, taking a break, scanning through the body, calming your breath, noting what kind of headspace you're in, noting what emotions are hanging around for you. Just so we start to get an understanding of our inner landscape throughout our day, start to get a much clearer picture of, okay, throughout the day, I'm pretty switched on. I'm agitated, or I tune in, and every time I tune in, I'm always needing the toilet, or I'm always thirsty, and I don't seem to be listening to these cues that my body's telling me. So there's some real gems that come from starting to tune in and check in. It's something that we can do throughout our day, say every 2 hours. You can set an alarm on your phone if you need that at the start, to tune in and listen to our needs and respond to them, and begin to notice our inner landscape. What is our inner landscape? Everything that's going on for us presently, emotionally, energetically, in terms of energy levels, and the way that we're talking to ourselves. The narrative that's going on. And it's really just through patience and compassion and practice do we start to get a much greater understanding of that inner narrative. So a really simple practice that you can do at any time of day. Let me just check if anyone's tuned in. Okay. Anything we can do from any time of day is this. Let me just set you up, and apologies for the slight messiness of this room. This room is both a yoga studio and a spare room and an office and everything in between at the moment, and probably where we store our laundry. So it's a little bit messy. That's okay. So where we start is with our feet about hip distance apart, maybe a little bit wider. I'm going to start by shaking out the arms, and if anyone's done a workshop with me, they know this is my go-to every time. And let your arms be a heavy weight, so it's not actually using too much energy to do this. As you breathe in through the nose and sigh it out of the mouth, and make that sigh, that exhale, as satisfying as you can. Kind of go, oh. And then after we've done that, we're going to shake out one arm. You might want to make a fist if this feels a little bit uncomfortable for your wrists, and let your hand be fluffy. And then the other arm. And you might need to hold something for this next one. Shake out your leg. Shake it to the front, shake it to the side, to the back. And to the other side. I'm challenging my balance right now. I'm not holding on to anything. Marvellous. And let the foot come down, let your arms flop heavy to the side. Take a big breath in. Breathe out, blow out of your lips, lower your chin down. Breathe in, roll left ear to left shoulder. Breathe out, bring it down, blow out to the lips. Breathe in, right ear to right shoulder. And breathe out, bring it down. And just take a few of these at your pace of breath. So you can move at a different rhythm to me, that's okay. Marvellous. And then just roll the chin back up. You can have your eyes a little bit closed or just soft away from the screen for a moment. And keep that breath in through the nose and out to the lips. Noticing this upward flow of your breath in, filling you right to the top. And this downward softening quality of your breath out. We're going to take 2 more rounds of breath like this. Great stuff. Then we're going to take our 3 middle fingers of both hands and just tap onto the sternum. And keeping the breath just as you have done. And if you want to swap out the blowing out of the lips with the exhale out of the mouth, do that. And then let the fingers start to spread away from each other. So you're running your fingers just underneath your collarbones. And up to the shoulders. And back up. So the fingers meet right on the sternum. And then take another satisfying inhale and a satisfying exhale here. Let the hands come down. Now, as we stand here for a moment, soften in your knees, like a lot. Almost so you can let everything be a little bit softer. Now, if you feel your toes gripping onto the floor, just give them a wiggle. Allow them to be soft and just very lightly scan down through your body now. Noticing whatever your attention is drawn to, sensation, pulsing, close against your skin, temperature, whatever it might be. And just follow that sensation around your body. Notice areas of tiredness and tightness. It's all good, it's all part of your experience of being here right now, and it's all important and helpful, insightful. And as you get down to the soles of your feet, just feel the whole weight of your body travelling down through these 2 pads into the floor. And we're going to take 10 rounds of a breath called Golden Thread breath. And it's simply breathing in through our nose, blowing out of our lips, but slightly just differently to what we were just doing. Make the smallest part in between your lips now. And so that exhale is slow, smooth, and long. I always imagine that deflating, finding a bit more softness with every exhale. Just keep it going at your pace. I'm going to talk at you, so you keep that breath going. And every exhale is enabling that releasing of effort, releasing of distraction. And if you find there are any thoughts, anything that's triggered you throughout your day which is hanging around, start to imagine this golden thread of breath leaving your lips. And as you imagine this golden thread beginning to weave out in front of you, getting longer with every breath, imagine attaching that trigger, that situation, that person, that conversation, whatever it is, to the end of that thread. And then continue to breathe. So we're not ignoring it, we're not repressing it. Just giving yourself a little bit of space between you and that. Let's take 5 more breaths like that. We've done way more than 10, but that's okay, it's worth doing. Great, so I'll take 2 more breaths like this. And then let your breath return to a natural pace and just notice how you're doing, how you're feeling, and the quality of your breath. And it's from this place where we just calmed everything down, we've shaken out some of the agitation that might be in the body, some of the busyness. We've had a busy day. Laying down on the floor and breathing won't always be the best choice. Because if we're stressed, if we're anxious, remember our nervous system going to fight or flight is telling us to get the hell out of there. So in that moment when we're being flooded with cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, it's telling us to run or it's telling us to fight. So if we stay still, our body's going to go, she's not fucking moving. What are we going to do? Give her a little bit more so it can fuel the fire. So doing something like shaking out the body, swinging your arms, and then you can guide yourself down. And doing that a few times a day can help to both meet any anxiety and stress that is arising in the body, but also if you're doing it throughout the day, you will be lowering your baseline of stress and anxiety. Because you'll be catching it before it gets to the point where it starts shouting at you through symptoms in the body. And then you can start to face stresses, challenges, and this personal inquiry with a whole lot more clarity. Now, in addition to this, when we are starting to understand this inner landscape, understand this narrative, the things that trigger us, the things that are keeping us fearful, talking to ourselves in a certain way that's keeping us feel small, act small, be small, is a really simple practice that you can do at the end of the day. I mean, you can do it any time of day, but personally I find doing it at the end of the day particularly beneficial, because at the end of the day, after we've had a busy one, and I'm sure many of us have experienced this, and I talk about it quite a lot in workshop because it is a common thing, it's a common thread for many of us. We've finished our day, we've been in front of screens, we've been running around, we've been blah, 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 blah. So our brain's just been taking on loads and loads of stimulation. And then it's only at that point that we remove the stimulation, even for like a little bit, and we go, right, now I'm going to calm down, I'm going to meditate this evening, it's going to be great, I'm going to be Zen-like. And in that moment, your brain goes, right, finally I can assimilate some of this stuff. Let me tell you some stuff. And that's when your brain can start flooding you with thoughts that feel like they're overwhelming and moving at a rate of knots. Because to be honest, that's probably the rate of knots it's been absorbing and digesting this stuff throughout the day as well. So when we are met with this, taking pen to paper and literally brain dumping all the thoughts that are swirling around in your head. And then, at first it will feel like you can't keep up with the stream potentially. There's a few things that happen here. By simply slowing down your thoughts to the rate in which you can write, will be slowing down the thoughts. The pressure that you feel to try and hold all this in, try and remember it all, try and untangle it when it's really noisy, suddenly you can start to put things on paper, something that you are no longer responsible for, and you can ingest it at a rate that works for you. Sometimes it might feel like you just have a really long, massive to-do list. That is certainly what happens to me. But at least then we're not going through trying to hold all this stuff and going, I'm really worried, I'm going to forget it. Get it down on paper, then you're no longer responsible for it. And it gives you this headspace. What also happens with this brain dump journaling, in addition to helping us wind down for the day, in addition to helping us assist in our sleep, in addition to helping manage our stress and anxiety levels and help us wind down, is that when we read this stuff back, if we do this on a regular basis for a matter of time, we can start to look back and we can go, okay, I see a theme of where I'm feeling triggered, or ways in which I'm talking to myself, or ways in which I'm talking about a certain area of my life or my ability. If you're using this practice to start to understand your inner landscape, I would say keeping some of that, the journaling for, a week or so, if not a little bit longer. If you're just doing it purely for stress management, then I would say you can totally chuck away that piece of paper later. But for this, in context with this, I would say keep hold of it. And even just reading it back straight away, it can give you an understanding of, yes, we're trying to get our dinner ready, and we're playing with the kids, and we're talking to our partner about a tricky meeting or whatever. But actually behind the scenes, there's a whole other conversation going on. And offloading some of that, taking off some of the weight, and starting to understand what's going on behind the scenes is a great place to start. So, moving on from stress and anxiety management, and if you have any questions about this stuff, if you would like particular support in stress and anxiety management, this is where I specialise. Get in touch with me and I'd more than happily do a session with you, and we can start to explore ways that you can manage it unique to you. I also run a 6-module program online of that as well that you can find on my website. Any questions, fire them over to me. So with that in mind, we're going to start to move into self-worth. So what is self-worth? Well, the definition of self-worth is valuing yourself and your unique qualities just as you are. So no matter what the external factors, your achievements, knowing that you are worthy of love, happiness and fulfillment. That's ultimately what it is. Knowing your worth means that you are worthy of this stuff. You don't have to prove yourself for love. You don't have to prove yourself to feel happy or fulfilled. It sounds so easy on paper, doesn't it? Now, we reflected on this yesterday about the way in which our society has really flipped our understanding of what makes us worthy, important, unique. It's all about external factors. And so it's, for many of us, it's unlearning what we've been told about what makes us good. What makes us good and what makes us worthy. Knowing your worth also means that you don't apologise for taking up space on the earth. Now, this was highlighted to me about 2-3 years ago by a coach of mine. And she was like, stop apologising. You're apologising for nothing. You're apologising for apologising. And it started to highlight to me how much we apologise. I think there's something very British in this as well. But what we don't realise is how much we apologise for no reason. They apologise when we don't mean it. So let's reflect on that. I'd really like you to shine a light on this. Like so many unconscious habits, we are unknowingly giving away our power every time we apologise for no reason. There are, of course, important and valid reasons to apologise when we cause harm, when we, cause pain, whatever. But all the rest, we are unknowingly giving away our power every time we apologise for no reason. So my example would be when my daughter was a toddler. I was walking through town, we still lived in Reading, and a man held the door for me, and she's kind of toddling along, and instead of saying thank you, I just went, oh, sorry, and then instead of just saying thank you, and then I kind of caught myself doing it. I was like, what the fuck? And also what I realised in that moment is that I wasn't just apologising for me, I was apologising for my daughter. And that, in that instant, did not sit well with me. And I was like, right, I've got to shine a light on this, and I've got to start putting a stop to this unnecessary apologising. Because I'm not apologising for her. No way. There was enough room for it. He was very happy to hold the door for us. So it took practice, but the first time I managed to walk through a door held for me and simply saying thank you, it felt like the start of something really marvellous, balanced and respectful. And now I've moved through this. I've probably gone through about 2 years of falling off the wagon a few times, but I really urge you, when you start to think about apologising as you're giving away something of yours, something of your worthiness, of your power, but also just apologising for existing, for taking up some space on the earth. Knowing your worth is knowing that you are worthy of living a life led by your values. You're deserving happiness, love and fulfillment. So when we feel it, when we uphold it, it reflects in how we care for ourselves, how we set healthy boundaries. When we don't feel good enough, when we don't feel worthy enough, when we don't feel pretty enough, successful enough, we can limit ourselves. We keep ourselves small. Like, oh, sorry for making up too much noise, for taking up a little bit too much space. Like, no. Every time we don't feel enough, and we apologise for being here, it's time that we start to shine a light on when we do this. Because we are unknowingly just scraping a bit of our confidence and our worth away with every time we do it. So I want you to bring to mind for a moment, maybe closing your eyes, maybe taking your eyes away from the screen, and just, you can put your ideas in the comments box as well. Or just reflecting to yourself, how does that sensation feel in your body when you don't feel good enough? When you don't feel good enough for the things that you want? When you don't feel externally validated good enough? When it arises, where do you feel it in your body? What's its texture? What's its sensation? It can become this really icky, for want of a better word, sensation. But start to notice how it arises, where it arises, and instead of pushing it down, acknowledging it when it arises for us. Giving it a little bit of space. Right now, I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. Actually, I need to just hold the light on this for a moment. Where do I feel this in my body? Bring it into this embodied present experience, and then we can do something with it. We keep on just letting it swirl around in our head. It's harder to do. And this is where things like EFT, so tapping, offers a really helpful way to do this, because we're acknowledging where it is in the body. So for those of you who don't know what emotional freedom technique is, it's tapping. It's tapping on various acupressure points and repeating phrases. So a simple EFT structure, as it were, when you feel this starting to arise, I don't feel the universal, I don't feel good enough, but I don't feel good enough to be here, popular enough, likeable enough. Tune in for a moment. Where do you feel it in the body? And I'll just show you the points here. And you start by just acknowledging it, like this feeling of being not good enough. I feel it in my upper abdomen, and it feels hard and cold. And then you say it again, I'm acknowledging this sensation in my body. And it's coming from not feeling good enough in this situation. But despite me experiencing this, I choose to love, honour and accept myself. And you might take that again, this feeling of not good enough. Maybe you mention its intensity, it's a 5 out of 10. And it's cold and it's hard and I feel it in my upper belly. But I choose to love and honour and accept myself, just as I am, even with this. And then you begin to always chase the sensation, so you can start to say, feeling not good enough. And you do the upper eyebrow. It hurts. It makes me feel sad. And under the eyebrow, and anxious. But I acknowledge that this belief has been created in childhood. And you come down to the chin. From a time when my needs weren't met. Maybe someone said something, or they didn't say something, and it's left this groove here. And you come down to the collarbone. So I'm acknowledging this belief now, but I know that it's not mine. And I know that it's not relevant anymore. And then you do this again, and then you start to talk about, I acknowledge that I'm not feeling good enough. In this belief that isn't mine. And I choose to feel better about this. I choose to release this now. And you do this a few times and you start to talk about how you're releasing it and consider what you're replacing it with. What sensation do you want to feel instead of this? And this doesn't have to be a full 180 because that can just feel like positive lying. You want to be from going, I'm feeling not good enough to, I feel fantastic about myself. I am queen bee. You might, but that might just feel like, I don't fucking feel like that right now. What you can do instead is go, actually, I choose to be really kind to myself right now. And I choose to give myself a little bit of extra space to prepare myself. And I choose to accept that this situation is unique. And this belief is not connected to it. And then you slowly talk yourself round to how you want to feel. And a really nice way to close is at the crown of the head and go, I now choose to release this belief of not feeling good enough in body, mind and spirit. And saying that 3 times. And so you acknowledge the discomfort, the belief, acknowledge the current situation, you describe it, and then you acknowledge that this belief and where it comes from. And then you begin to impart the new statement and belief you wanted to replace it with. And then you choose to release it. So what I will do is I will share with you a full EFT I am not good enough script. I'll do it in the group probably tomorrow. But this is just something that you can build upon yourself. Because it means that we are, again, not pushing it down. We're not repressing this stuff. If we are to get to know ourselves, if we are to build self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, this is all about getting to know ourselves and accepting ourselves. Even the bits of ourselves that we kind of don't want people to see. From that place, we can build confidence because we are fully experiencing ourselves as a whole, complete person. We're not shaming parts of ourselves. So what is self-esteem? If that's self-worth, what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is what we think and feel and believe about ourselves. Self-confidence, however, and that can be quite fickle. It's based on our abilities in various areas of our life. So I'm sure for many of you, you've experienced this, where you have one area of your life where you feel really confident, and you feel really able, You feel prepped, you've got the stuff. Another area of your life, you might feel a bit like, maybe it's at the start of a course or start of a new job. Your confidence isn't necessarily there yet because you haven't learnt the ropes. So we might be confident in one area and not in another. The problem arises a lot when our identity is reliant with a certain area of our life succeeding. So we put all of our confidence in, this is going well, so this means I'm a good person and I'm great. But of course, as we know, things don't always move that way. So as an example, I teach yoga, and say my business failed. And because my business failed as an example. It hasn't failed, but And then I would say, well, that makes me not just a bad yoga teacher, but just a failure across the board. So it will start to knock down my confidence and my sense of self-worth across the board. So confidence is something to tune into. Tune into it when it feels great, because actually that's a really good place to reflect upon. When you're feeling a little bit down, when you're feeling a little bit kind of dirt kicked in your face, your confidence is low in another area, you can go, well, do you know what? How does it feel when I'm really rocking it in this area? How can I set the conditions to bring this sensation, to bring this state over here? What do I need? Externally and internally. So who am I without this as part of my identity? So we find this a lot with kind of new parents, being a mum, it's a huge one for women. You're like, who am I when I'm not with this baby anymore? I've forgotten who I am. Our identity has become so intertwined with this area of our life that we feel confident or not confident in. So in an area where confidence is low, asking yourself, what am I telling myself about my worth as a person due to my lower ability, for example? Am I allowing this area of my life to currently reflect how successful I see myself or not? Why am I allowing that to have such an impact across the board and seeing myself as a success as a person, not just in this certain area of my life? And with that inquiry, then we ask, well, define success. How are you defining success for yourself? And I actually put a video on my Facebook page that is all about this. I think it was last week, so you can watch it back. It lasts about 10 minutes. Does it include our vision of success? Does it include our personal values? Does it include how you want to feel when you are successful, when you've reached those goals? So a really helpful piece of work of personal inquiry to start supporting confidence, our idea of being successful, living a successful life, is getting to know our values. Because then we can reflect, whilst we are developing an area of our life, we can ask, well, whilst I work towards this goal, whilst I work towards my training of becoming a nurse or whatever, am I living by my values as I grow here? Because if you're living with integrity, even though you haven't got the goal yet, haven't reached the goal, then you are living successfully. You're living aligned, goal met or not. Can we start measuring our success by whether we are living with integrity as we move towards our goals? So for example, instead of, someone saying, I'll feel confident running my business when I start making £5,000 a month. That's my measure. Then I'm going to feel confident and I'll feel successful. I'll feel successful as a person, I'll feel successful as a business owner. But until that point, not so much. One, how will that lack of confidence actually serve you in getting towards that goal in the first place? But also, if that's your only measure of success, you could get to 5k a month and that could be done without integrity, without feeling fulfilled, without getting joy, if you made that 5K a month without integrity, would this still be a success? Would that goal be a success? I'll leave that to you to answer, but personally, I'd say a big fat no. Now, as we start to explore this, what is success? What are my values? What do I stand for? We're really starting to just get to know ourselves. And when I first started being kind of told to do these practices, and we invited and guided to do these practices, should I say, we think, well, of course I know this stuff. But then when you try and answer off the bat, it's like, I need to think about this. What are my kind of 5-6 key values that I want to live by, that I want to uphold? And the next practice is, and this can feel a little bit sticky if confidence is low, but it's so important, even more so if it feels sticky, is asking yourself, what are my strengths? What makes me unique? What are my unique strengths? And it's an important personal practice. So if you take nothing from these 3 days of me talking at you, take some time this coming week to reflect and get down on paper. What do you value? What makes you tick? What are your strengths? Lean into the discomfort of bigging yourself up when you're going into your strengths and become acquainted with what makes you you. Because I have to say, from personal experience, when I felt I was floundering at my most, it's because I didn't know what I stood for. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I was good at. But I also didn't feel worthy of leaning into the good things about me. But as soon as I did, I started to realise that there was some real good stuff. And that can be my foundation to build on. That can be my foundation to start to inquire what I want to do, how I want to live, and everything in between. Become acquainted with what makes you you. And knowing that once you have these answers, they can apply in all areas of your life. If you know what makes you tick, if you know what you stand for, if you know what you'd want, said that 2 times, if you know what you'd fight for, that you want to uphold, then all of a sudden you have this really helpful filter. When something feels jarring, when something feels like, oh, yeah, hold on, well, is this in line with this value of mine? Is this in line with me wanting to live with authenticity? No. And that's why it feels jarring. Maybe I need to learn how to say no to this. And the more that we start to bring all these different parts of ourselves in line, of course, sometimes we're going to have to, we can't always get our way. But in terms of building a life that feels aligned and feels in flow more and more, it's getting to know the stuff about ourselves. When we know this stuff about ourselves, we are more confident in upholding what we stand for and not. So reflect now. Is there an area of your life you're feeling held back by in your confidence? Remembering self-confidence is about your ability in a certain area. Is there a certain area of your life that feels like it's being held back by your self-esteem? So what you believe about yourself. And is there an area of your life that you feel, or across the board, that's being affected by your sense of self-worth, of receiving the fruits and successes and fulfillment? And that self-worth might filter across the board, that self-esteem might filter across the board. But starting to acknowledge, where are these 3 qualities of me feeling me or not? Where are they appearing? Where are they rearing their head? And where are they potentially stopping me from creating a growth mindset, seeing things clearly, caring for myself in the way that I know that I am, that I know that I deserve? Self-worth when low can sabotage our efforts for change. Even when we say, yes, I want this, I really do, I want this change, or I want to reach this goal, or I want to see this, I want to feel this more in my life. But self-worth, it has a field day when it hooks up with our limiting beliefs. And our limiting beliefs want to keep us safe, keep us small, keep us feeling fearful, not taking risks. And because it's connected to our primal brain, that's what our primal brain wants to do. It wants to keep us safe. It doesn't like change, it wants to keep us safe. But ironically, by trying to keep us safe, it's actually putting us in danger of living a life that just isn't us, that isn't in line with our values, that isn't acknowledging our strengths, that isn't allowing us to take risks. So we can say, yeah, I really want this, I really, really do. But behind the scenes, the self-worth married up with a little bit of a limiting belief saying, I fear the responsibility that that might bring if I reach this goal, or the judgment that might come if it fails, or if there might be someone better than me. So starting to get to know ourselves and what we stand for, and then as we started to look at yesterday, starting to listen to the internal narrative that's potentially calling the shots and keeping our sense of worth low. Now, I wanted to share with you an embodiment practice and just confidence. Okay, I reckon I can do this in the next 20 minutes. So I want you to come up to stand. And there's a very simple embodiment practice that you can weave into any movement practice or meditation practice. It all works pretty well. It's a really good one to start your day, but it's also a really good way of intercepting when our confidence is low, or when we're feeling stressed, or when we're feeling anxious, when we start to feel ourselves physically closing off. And it's called taking up space. So we step our legs as wide as we can while still feeling comfortable in our knees. A little softness in the knees so you're not locking them out. And take your arms wide out to the side. Wiggle your shoulders down. And spread wide through your fingers, wide through your toes. Lift up through the arches of your feet. Maybe lift your chin a little bit. Puff out your heart a bit more. Take your eyes to the sky or up towards the ceiling. Take a few moments just to see how it feels to be here. Taking up as much space as you can. And then notice how you breathe when you're here. Where do you feel it? Where do you feel it most prominently moving in your torso? And then asking yourself, look at me here, taking up space. Does this feel familiar? Does this feel unfamiliar? What area of my life would benefit from me embodying this quality of taking up space? What area of my life would benefit from me standing up, taking up my space and breathing big? We're going to take 2 more big breaths here. And know that when we are doing this position, especially when we're countering this response, this is sending a message to our nervous system that there is no tiger for us to protect ourselves from. But all is well. We can use our bodies as a messenger back to our nervous system that actually, yes, the fears are going on, swirling around in our head. But actually just informing our nervous system, it's like, no, do you know what? I'm better than safe. I'm taking up some space right now. I'm feeling good. I'm breathing big and I'm breathing deep. And I feel my feet on the floor. I feel my worthy space upon the floor. So that's the first one. Now for the next one, I'm just seeing if I can pull my screen back just a little bit. Is that you step yourself into a warrior one, your feet like a wild railway track as opposed to a tightrope. And you bend in your front knee just a little bit. And the gesture of our hands here, weight us a little bit into this front leg. We take our hands wide and turn them out. And similar to our take up space, see if we can just find a bit more space across the throat. This can feel a little bit exposing for some of us, so just being kind if you feel this feeling exposed when you do this. And keeping the back of the neck long and comfortable. And taking a few settling breaths just to centre and get comfortable. And keeping your eyes open, just moving your eyes away from the screen, just saying, what am I ready to say yes to? What am I ready to say yes to? And then noticing, does this feel familiar? Is it not? And where in my life could I benefit from this quality? Saying yes. You might even say it out loud, like, yes, yes, of course. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course I'm going to step up. Of course. Of course I'm going to take that risk. Of course it's important to me. You can play around with this. What are the phrases that come with? What are you saying yes to? And then just release that after a few breaths. You want to just put anything down on paper. And we'll do one more. We'll swap legs, but same warrior one legs here. A little bend in the front knee. Nice wide railway track with the feet. I'm going to bring one hand into a fist where our thumb's on the outside. On the inside, excuse me. I'm going to bring it in towards the hip. I'll hold it here so you can see. And keeping that shoulder nice and soft. And then the other one is taking the hand forward. With a little bend in your elbow here, so it's not, it's something a lot stronger than this kind of attacking of reaching forward. Fingers together in that front hand. And with this, after taking a few breaths and settling in, asking yourself, what am I ready to say no to? And more importantly, what do I need to say no to? And saying no, does this feel familiar? And does it really not? And is there an area of my life that would really benefit from this? And this boundary, this respecting of my needs by saying no? And as we just hold this for another few moments, remember that saying no can be one of the most loving things that you say or do. And actually, yes can be the most violent if we don't mean it or we don't actually want it. And then release that down. Just give it a little bit of a shake and a wiggle. And taking pen to paper, if anything kind of came up there. And I said it before, our self-confidence, certainly our self-esteem, comes from knowing ourselves, comes from asking what makes us tick, comes from doing these embodiment practices. Asking ourselves, what makes your heart sing? What gives you joy? Are you doing it enough? You know, through this sense of self-esteem and this sense of self-worth, it's showing ourselves the respect of asking ourselves these questions. So start each day, or at some point in your day, asking, how do I choose to feel today? And what do I want to give today? What do I want to receive today? And just like we were talking about yesterday, through starting to really intentionally have these dialogues with our consciously aware self, when we're centered, we start to realize how much more can be our choice. It's just a matter of getting used to shining our attention on it, shifting the way that we are thinking, realizing that we have a lot more choice than sometimes we realize we do, especially when we are feeling low in our worth or self-confidence. Because we start to, those beliefs, those fears that will try to keep us safe, make us feel like it's either no way or the highway. And when we start to kind of blow that wide open, manage our stress, ask ourselves these questions, we start to realize that there is a whole plethora of choices out there for us. And that in itself is a really empowering place to be. And as we start to get to know our inner landscape, our beliefs, the ways that we've been talking to ourselves, we can start to create statements such as, okay, yes, this belief is here, but do you know what, today I choose to be. Right? Today I am kind to myself. I listen to my needs. And just through these statements, we can call them affirmations. I could do a whole workshop on affirmations, so I won't get massively into them. But it's starting to form these statements that we want to surround ourselves with. We want to journal with them. We want to write them out. We want to tap with them, using that EFT sequence and saying these, I choose to be, I am, I honor. And moving through the body, taking 3-4 rounds of them. And what's nice with the EFT is that actually we're taking a physical body action whilst we're making a conscious thought. So we're connecting the mind and body as well. And that's why it's so powerful. We can meditate with these statements, with these clear statements of choice that we're making for ourselves. And we can breathe in with half the phrase and breathe out with half the phrase. Let that statement fill the mind space. Surround yourself with them. And most importantly, start embodying them with daily action until they become your new familiar. Until they become a phrase that comes to the forefront, that you pull out of your armory when you need it. Yes, I hear you, belief that I'm not good enough for this. But do you know what? I'm going to choose to move forward and see what happens. Not asking someone else how you should be, but beginning to carve these understandings out for yourself. So, this other thing that I would like to bring to you today as a reflection piece, something not to be rushed, but giving yourself a good 20 minutes, half an hour. And when we start to ask ourselves the ways that we want to live, the values we want to live by, asking yourself, how do I want to be remembered when I die? Might be a little bit morbid, but how do I want people to remember me? Do I want them to remember that I had X, Y, and Z material, that I made this much money, that I look great? Or what are the things that I want to be remembered by? What's the impact that I want to have made? And asking yourself that question after doing a little bit of centering, maybe following the breath for a few minutes first, calming yourself down so you get the answers that you need. And then you can start to you have a list of qualities that you can start taking daily action to start embodying. You want to be remembered for being compassionate and kind and a great listener? Start listening deeply when people speak to you. Stop trying to fix everything and start holding space when your friends talk to you. It's these things, these choices that we can make. When you're faced with a lack of self-confidence and stuck in this fixed mindset, there are a few ways to approach this. You can go back to a past memory where you did feel confident in a certain area of your life. What conditions were set to enable this? What qualities were you embodying? And use embodiment practices like some of the ones that we've done here to start instilling these qualities into yourself presently. How are you standing? How are you moving? And if you have a specific quality that you want an embodiment practice for, totally hit me up and I can give you some personal advice. How else can we approach it? Well, in meditation, we can visualize your future self there, doing what you want to do with confidence and ease. How does it feel? What did you do to get there? So often it is just doing it and being vulnerable along the way. But this highlights that those leaps that must be taken to get us to where we want to be, if we want anything to ever change, it's in the process of getting there and the path to getting to our future self or our goal reached. That's where the good stuff happens. So what leaps got you there? Another way that we can do this is bring someone to mind that you admire. Someone you bring to mind that you admire in their confidence, in their ability in a certain area. It might be someone who's more experienced than you. For example, you're training and they've been doing the job for years and you see them doing it in a way that you want to do it. What is it about them that you admire? What are their qualities? What can you learn from their journey to get there yourself? If you know, or if you don't know, I mean, the chances are they weren't just born that way, being really good at it. Reminding yourself of that if you're being stuck in that fixed mindset. What qualities and commitments did it take for them to get there? As I said, they didn't just wake up out of bed and go, right, I'm the CEO, let's go. If you know that person, then you can ask them, you can talk to them about it. Now, if you find yourself comparing in this point, and you know them, connect with them, ask for advice, ask for their story, ask what makes them feel nervous or what they felt nervous or fearful about themselves. And this will help with the comparison because all of a sudden they're a human being again and they're not this kind of perfect 2D, 1D character. It makes them human. And then it reminds us that we're human too. And this is a vital piece of work for being kind and compassionate to ourselves and respecting our humanness, expecting that we will always be a fucking work in progress. And even those people that we hold in greatest esteem, they are also a work in progress. And they are still human, and they still make mistakes, and they still are scared of things. Now, when we're doing this particular point, if we're bringing someone to mind that we admire and starting to explore their story and learn from that, just avoiding the comparison game. I mean, look, I could do a whole 3-day course on comparison, so I'm not going to go into major depth here. But comparison being, they are this and I am not, so I must be lesser. We want to avoid that. And it's important to notice each and every time that we do when we compare ourselves and it makes us feel a bit shitter. Noticing what areas of your life you're comparing. Then acknowledging, how does it feel when you do? You know, that Instagram example of, you know, we're scrolling, then we sit there and we look at an image and we make a judgment, both of that person and ourselves. And we can get addicted to comparing ourselves. And so asking each and every time we catch ourselves, stopping the scroll just to make ourselves feel crap, ask, is this serving me right now? Is this building my confidence? All right, let's acknowledge that. Let's bring this habit into the conscious so now I can do something with it. And when we find ourselves being stuck in comparison game, ask instead again, what qualities in this person am I admiring? Is it their confidence? Is it their beauty? Is it their perception of freedom? Obviously, we're looking at a picture, so what do we know? But what is it about that image of that person that I am comparing myself to? So, the final point that I wanted to go into, I could find myself going down a bit of a comparison chat there. So, when we start to find ourselves going down that fixed mindset and self-confidence rabbit hole, we stop and we can ask ourselves, what would I say to my child, loved one, best friend if they were in this situation? What would you say and advise your child, loved one, or best friend if you heard themselves talking to themselves in this way? Would you direct the statements that you're saying to yourself to them? It's always going to be a big fat no, isn't it? And the next option is, how can I respond to this situation and myself in love, not fear? And the final one, when our confidence is knocked, when our esteem is feeling low, the way to start kicking ourselves out of a funk is to challenge ourselves every day. Just a little bit. Or a big bit if you want, but we can start with a little bit. Challenge the status quo of what is not serving you. Maybe it's as simple as delegating some tasks of yours to other people in your household. It's these bite-sized steps that can feel huge, and they are, and they can catalyse change in other areas of our life. Because remember, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So each day, challenge yourself. Check in with your values. Check in with how you want to feel. Ask yourself how you want to feel. Ask yourself what you want to give. Ask yourself what you want to receive. And this will start to build your foundation strong. So I hope this has been helpful for you today. And as ever, get in touch with me. Let me know how this stuff has landed for you. And keep in touch with how you're putting this stuff into practice. Have a lovely rest of your evening, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Take care.